Well, my big takeaway there from Aaron's montage is what we saw yesterday, a rare public break between President Trump and Pope Fauci, the often wrong and overrated. And it's clear with basically everyone that would even consider voting for Donald Trump this fall, Anthony Fauci's worn out his welcome to at least some degree. But why? How did we get here? Why does he deserve to be fired? How about being wrong about everything? What do I mean? Let us count the ways. Let's go back to the very beginning, shall we? With this audio from late January from one of my old radio affiliates, AM 970 The Answer in his native New York City. Here's Anthony Fauci going all Frank Drebin from The Naked Gun. Everything's fine. Nothing to see here.
What can you tell the American people about what's going on? Should they be scared?
I don't think so. The American people should not be worried or frightened by this. It's a very, very low risk to the United States.
Then, a month later, he echoed those sentiments in the New England Journal of Medicine, no less, one of the most preeminent publications of American medicine. And he wrote on February 28th, and I quote, "The overall clinical consequences of COVID-19 may ultimately be more akin to those of a severe seasonal influenza, which has a case fatality rate of approximately 0.1%, or a pandemic influenza." So if you want to know where did the talking point come from, it's just a bad flu. It came from him, Anthony Fauci. And the New England Journal of Medicine told us this on February the 28th. But hey, if you don't like his current position, stick around. He'll have some more. On March 8th, Anthony Fauci on 60 Minutes told us, hey, there's no reason to be walking around wearing a mask.
Right now in the United States, people should not be walking around with masks.
You're sure of it? Because people are listening really closely to this.
Right now, people should not be walking. There's no reason to be walking around with a mask.
3 days later, because life comes at you fast, bro. 3 days later, on March 11th, Anthony Fauci testified before Congress. This was now 10 times more lethal than the seasonal flu. Get ready for Captain Trips.
I think if you count all the cases of minimally symptomatic or asymptomatic infection, that probably brings the mortality rate down to somewhere around 1%, which means it is 10 times more lethal than the seasonal flu.
Which, of course, prompted the effort that began on March the 16th to, quote, flatten the curve. 15 days to flatten the curve based on the now disgraced Imperial College doomsday model that even the liberal BBC is calling BS on that as we speak. And all that effort really did was flatten our economy, as now we're in a recession, ironically driven largely by, wait for it, a lack of demand in the healthcare system, since everyone with heart disease and everything else has been told to stay home and left untreated to hopefully not die later. At the end of those 15 days, with our healthcare system still not overrun except for a handful of cities, he convinced President Trump to extend a national shutdown for another 30 days. Fauci and company based most of their case for this extension of the national quarantine on the always wrong IHME model from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, which other experts from Harvard to former members of their own committee in a peer-reviewed paper published on April 17th referred to as, quote, not well suited and, quote, a travesty. and saying, no way should we be using this to base public policy off of. And that's exactly what Pope Fauci, the often wrong and overrated, based our public policy off of. Shall we continue? Yes, we shall. For example, if you're wondering, Steve, what do you mean about the model is always wrong? On April 1st, IHME said my native state of Iowa would be at 1,300 deaths by April 30th. As of May 13th, Iowa has seen 271 deaths. It predicted Georgia's peak death day would be 134 on April 21st. 24 people died that day in Georgia instead, and on it goes. You could write an entire book just on documenting wrong projections on coronavirus from the IHME model. And then, Oh, this one's going to really give you the warm fuzzy. Then after enslaving us in our way of life and our liberties and our Constitution and our economy to these models, on April 10th, Anthony Fauci went on Fox News and had the unmitigated chutzpah to say this.
But I have been and still am and will always be somewhat reserved and skeptical about models because models are only as good as the assumptions that you put into the model.
Now you tell us. Thanks for nothing, man. Thanks for nothing. Oh, but he's not yet begun to be wrong. It continues. This guy, he's right as rain, if you mean striking out at the plate every time he's up. Like this, all right? Now Fauci says he's unsure about our children attending school in person in the fall, which is a linchpin to our reopening. Despite the fact China, Japan, France, Sweden, Switzerland, Iceland, Norway, and Denmark, as of right now, and more countries are considering this, are sending their kids back to school. Should we at least ask what they know and what we don't? Or do we just operate under the assumption they all hate their children more than we do? Do we operate under that assumption? The Lancet, based in the UK, it endorsed Bernie Sanders' Medicare for All proposal earlier this year during the campaign. This is no right-wing rag. It is now predicting more children under 5 will die worldwide from adverse effects of this lockdown over the next 6 months than have currently died worldwide from COVID-19 so far. Now we're told we have to trust Fauci by the smarty pants blue check marks. Well, which Fauci are we supposed to trust? How much do you know what he knows? How do you know which Fauci to demigod? What kind of expert gets exalted for such an inconsistent and double-minded track record? And then, what kind of people wish to treat such an inconsistent and double-minded figure as their personal guru? Certainly not people for freedom or liberty. Why would you base your life choices off his inaccurate and unreliable declarations? Mr. President, Anthony Fauci should be fired right now. He should have been fired 3 times already.
You're fired. You're fired. You're fired. You're fired. You're fired.